Hey YouTube, today I'm going over Psalms 25 verse 4. I'm going to try to go through the weeks. As we go through the weeks, I'm going to try to take this one chapter in Psalm and break it up and really look into some of the stuff that really has some great knowledge. This really is nothing of my own knowledge, it never really is. This basically comes from the footnotes, and it's just great information that I thought was really good and I wanted to share. So Psalms chapter 25 verse 4. Show me your ways, O Lord, teach me your paths. Alright, so basically what this psalm talks about is it talks about following the Lord and having Him teach us His ways, having Him show us His ways and guide us in His ways. And what I pulled from this verse and the few verses after it is some basic principles of succeeding in God's ways. So principle 1, we have to have a sincere desire for God to lead us in His ways. It says so right in verse 4. Show me your ways, O Lord, teach me your paths. Have a sincere desire. Be like, Lord, I really want to know what it truly means to follow you, and I truly want to follow you. Principle number 2. Put our trust and hope in God all day long. That comes from verse 5, the verse right after it. Guide me in your truth and teach me, for you are God my Savior, and my hope is in you all day long. See, it's hard to think about something all day long unless it's really just on your mind. What it's asking us to do is we need to put our trust and hope in God. You know, last week I was talking about how we kind of put God second place, you know. We feel sick, go to the medicine. We don't talk to God first. It's like we need to put our trust and hope in God. God has blessed us with medicine, but He didn't bless us with medicine so that we'd stop talking to Him or stop asking Him for stuff. Alright, principle number 3. Humbly submit to God. That would be verse 9. He guides the humble in what is right and teaches them His way. Alright? Commit to a godly living. That's verse 10. All the ways of the Lord are loving and faithful for those who keep the demands of His covenant. Commit to what He asked you to do. His whole commandment is this book right here. His whole instruction book is right here in front of us. And it's for us to use, but if you never pick it up on a daily basis to read what it is He's asking you to do, you'll never know. The last part of point 3 is fear the Lord. Now when it says fear the Lord, I want to clarify what it means by fear. By fear it means to deeply honor, revere, and recognize His awesome power and authority. That goes from verse 12 to 14. Who then is the man that fears the Lord? He will instruct him in the way chosen for him. He will spend his days in prosperity, and his descendants will inherit the land. The Lord confides in those who fear Him. He makes His covenant known to them. If you truly fear the Lord, He's going to guide you. He's going to show you His ways. If you deeply honor Him, if you recognize that at any moment God could destroy the entire earth, that God spoke and then there was light. Do you see, we kind of dumb down the power He really has. We don't really acknowledge the fact that our God, who we fear to speak in public areas, we fear to speak His name in public areas, that is the same God that spoke and there was lights. And not just electric lights, like the sun. He spoke and there was the earth. He spoke and there was animals. He breathed and there was man. And those are just His words. We fear so much to tell others about Him, yet it's the same God whose words did more than my hands could ever do. The fourth principle of succeeding in God's ways. We must rid ourselves of sins. What it says, and the little footnote here, is that sin is a barrier to knowing God and His ways. We must rid our lives of anything that offends Him or defiles His standards, then allow Him to forgive and spiritually cleanse. Verses 4 through 8. So just from show me your ways and paths, O Lord, all the way down to verse 8, which is the good and upright is the Lord. Therefore He instructs sinners in His ways. And He will forgive you. I I like verse 6 and 7. It says, "Remember, O Lord, your great mercy and love, for they are from of old." Verse 7, "Remember not the sins of my youth and my rebellious ways. According to your love, remember me, for you are good, O Lord." He will forgive you. He will cleanse you. All you have to do is ask Him. But don't go and try to fix it yourself and then come to Him. Because ultimately what you're doing is you're pushing off something until you can do something that you can't do. It's like saying, let me go get experience as a cook before I go apply at this restaurant. But if you're getting experience as a cook, that means you have to cook at a restaurant, correct? So you'll never get a job at a restaurant if you really stick close by that standard of let me go find experience first. If that makes any sense. The last one, and this is the most important because many of us don't advertise this, many of us don't remember this, or every time it happens we forget about it. It's the last principle, it's principle 5, and it's expect trouble. It says right here in the footnote, adversary in our lives is not necessarily a sign of God's disapproval. Knowing God and pursuing His purposes may lead into suffering and loss that we should not have otherwise encountered. The ultimate example of this is Jesus. Jesus suffered great deals of pain that if He had decided not to follow God's plan for His life, He may have never suffered. Paul, who was first Saul, probably never would have suffered what he did if he had remained as Saul. Just because we accept Christ doesn't mean life becomes easier. It just means that we have a Savior to back us up every time something goes wrong. And that's the first part of this week, this lesson. Is just, if we want to succeed in God's ways, if we want to really learn how to live a godly life, we need to start here. You need to have a sincere desire to follow God. You got to put your trust and hope in God all day long. He's got to be first. You can't have something before Him. Well, let me go talk to the doctor first, and then I'll come talk to God. No, talk to God first, then go talk to the doctor. Verse 3, or the third principle, humbly submit to God, commit to godly living, and fear the Lord. The fourth principle, rid our lives of sin. Principle 5, expect trouble. As you go through this week, think about these principles. Do you really want to find out what it means to follow God and for God to lead you in His ways? Because I know we're asking for it. Many of us are out there, we want to change our schools, we want to change our community, we want to change our lives. We can't do that if we're not walking in His ways. We have great purposes, great callings put upon us, but if we never stop and ask God to lead us in His ways, we'll never achieve those purposes or those callings. That's all I have for today, YouTube. I've really enjoyed talking about this. Just think about this over this week, and I will have another video up next week.